Welcome to the morning show. I'm your host, Leonard Duncan, and we need to thank Elka Suspension for all they do for ATV Talk, bringing us the shows that we do across the board, from our audio to our Instagram to our live YouTube show. Antelope Slot Canyon Tours is another great sponsor of ours, and we need to thank them for the support that they give us as well. Um, Today, we're going to talk about the Nevada 1000, and we need to thank the gentlemen that have joined us. Guys, introduce yourselves.
Hey, good morning. Donnie Pulliam back here once again. Thanks for, talking with me, having me on again, Leonard. A lot of folks know me as Donnie. That's actually how I'm listed on YouTube. A few people here and there call me Don in the work world, but from Louisiana and just out back again in Nevada to have some fun in the desert.
I'm Mike Wise from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This is my second time being back over here in the desert race. Just kind of love being out here. It's so much fun to come out here and do something so different, because being from South Louisiana, we don't get to see this kind of terrain ever. So it's just really neat to come out here and enjoy it.
Mike, what do you do?
I sell tires. I work for Southern Tire Mart. I just enjoy it. Kind of just get to talk to people every day and get to tell them all about the fun. Like, told everybody we was all coming out here, telling them we're going out here to ride a 3-wheeler for 1,000 miles. And they're like, you're absolutely crazy. And they're like, they don't even make that anymore. And then when you tell them we're on a modern one, it's like, what is that? It just it's pretty cool. Everybody that I get to see and talk to along the way and in my life in the work world. And, and I'm normally a big ATV guy. I race quads and racing quads for almost 25 years. So that's what I've grown up doing since I was about 17, 18 years old. My first ever 3-wheeler, I had a 70 at the age of 5, ATC 70. My dad raced a 250R 3-wheeler, 1985 liquid cooled. And, it was sitting in the barn for years. I said, Dad, let me ride. He looked me dead in my face and he said, if you can if you can crank it, you can ride it. Well, obviously at 12, 13 years old, I'm looking at it and seeing this 3-wheeler back there back then he actually did some flat track with it. So it was all lowered and the little tires on it. He'd end up finally putting the factory tires and wheels back on it. So it had to go wheels and all that. And just sitting there looking at it. And finally, about 14, 15, probably 15 years old, I had enough sense to go out there and pull the carburetor off and clean it and got it cranked up and running. And matter of fact, I killed my first deer riding that 250R with a bow in my lap and my climbing stand on the back, riding it down the highway to go to my deer stand. Go to the tree, I guess. Yeah, so that was
somebody's got a phone that's not on silent because it keeps chiming.
That might have been. I don't know. Let's see.
You guys are live on YouTube, so somebody in your group or your family that's watching knows that it's happening and they're texting or whatever, but that's okay. Mike, that's pretty awesome story. We'll have to get into that in depth later.
Absolutely.
Don, you and I got together, we had a show, we talked a little bit about the 1,000. Really, as this thing's manifested and rolled into actually happening, that's kind of what I want to talk about.
Sure.
How did you guys all come together?
Yeah.
None of you have a straight path to each other. That is the craziest.
Yeah. So I'll kind of go through that. So if you back up to last year before Vegas to Reno, and I know you're going to talk to James DeCoker again sometime here soon. James and I had talked for years about getting out here to the desert. The short story of Vegas to Reno is he and I finally talked enough, got a team together, made that happen. Some of the same players who are, in different facets of this, this Nevada 1000 were on that team. Mike and I were both on it. Julian Hofert was on it. He was running chase for Skeeter in this race, which is another awesome story. And I'm sure you're going to have him on. If you weren't already going to, definitely need to. because he Ironmanned it, and that was phenomenal.
The real king of three-wheelers, as we have now named him. He's the real king.
But yeah, so this team, and, David Ham was riding with us. Well, in this race, David Ham was, back with TPC, in his normal mode. But again, the great thing about that is, hey, we're all friends. We all talk about it leading up to a race, who's riding with who can get a team effort together.
We all help each other. If somebody needs something, we was all hand in hand. We even had to help each other out before this race.
So yeah, so as far as from getting together for this, if I'm like full disclosure, there was a little talk many months ago about this team that myself, Mike, Luke, and Aiden and Kevin, parts of this team possibly actually riding one of the TPC machines in this race. There was some discussion on that, and just between we went from anywhere from riding Julian's ATC 250R was thrown out there. That wasn't a real strong possibility.
Back on your bike.
Yeah, talked about going through mine again, riding it. Honestly, one of the big things there was Mike and I were kind of whipped from building it and then driving it back into last year.
So the funny story with that, I told him, I said I wasn't going to race. I was not going to drive over here unless I had a quad in the back of the truck. So he promised me if I was riding a three-wheeler, I could fly.
Yeah. So that's what brought us to riding Luke's bike for this race. And so discussions in the background, different riders, of course, it was primarily James and I saying we want to make an effort again. Of course, I tapped Mike on the shoulder and he said he was in, like he mentioned, as long as he could fly out.
That was my only stipulation.
So discussions went a little further with Luke. And even then it was a little bit of, well, is he, able to put the time into going through his machine and willing to drive it out? Or do I go back through mine and get it out here somewhere, shipping it or driving it? And so we settled on, initially it looked like myself, Mike, Luke on his bike. And then we pulled in Kevin Adcock as another rider because he's been out here several times and he was interested. And then probably a little further along in the process, Aiden Lipham got involved. So he was tied in because Luke has ridden and raced with him before. And he suggested that, hey, if we want to pick up an additional rider, this would be a good one. And that worked out well. So really just, again, the genesis, hey, James and I wanting to move forward and have another effort. Pulled in Mike, got Luke involved, decided on riding his machine, and then picked up our last couple of riders.
Just as a side note, how is Luke and James doing right now? Because I know emotionally it's got to be devastating for both of them.
Luke was fine. I think Luke was okay with it because he's, this was his first time to not finish. So, but he was okay. He wasn't, from what I gathered, wasn't upset, wasn't bothered about it. Now, James, on the other hand, was very disappointed.
Yeah. Pretty quiet as all the recovery was going on and everything. And we can get into that part in a little more detail also. But yeah, essentially it took us about 7 hours to be able to get out to the machine and get it back, back to the truck and back to the van. And because at first when this happened, we were more along the lines of, hey, if we can get the bike back, get it towed by rescue back to a pit within an hour or so, we've got a spare motor, we can swap it. We won't be in contention for a win anymore, because we had a great race going with David Ham and his
amazing race. We probably got, that was awesome.
And we just, as time went on and communication wasn't really quick with, the recovery crew. And then finally, Luke and I ended up loading up in one of the recovery vehicles and had to manage getting around and finding ways around the live race course to get out there, get the bike. Actually, a recovery vehicle, the primary one in that area, made it to the bike, I'm going to say probably within about 45 minutes or an hour. After Mike had left the machine on the back of another bike.
I had an Ironman racer. learned his name's Timothy. Thank him for allowing me to ride on the back of his Can-Am for 20 miles. And the poor fella had a broke rib because he had blew a tire, and that big Can-Am had fell over on top of him. And he had said he had broke one of the front ribs in his chest and he could hardly breathe. And when he stopped and he said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." I said, the transmission had just completely locked up. And I said, "I can't even get it into a gear. Back tires was locked up." So, and he said, "Oh yeah, come on, let's go." So he gives me a sip of his water out of his water pack. And then not only the race was absolutely amazing, so much fun. We got to battle and do back and forth battling with Ham and their team, the TPC bike. And it was just great. And then I get on the back of this big sports utility quad or whatever you want to call it. And just my helmet, because I'd left my chest protector, neck brace, gloves back at the bike because I had used it, was laying under the bike for shade because I was smart enough to leave my phone and water pack. And we'll get into that a little while later of why that happened.
Yeah.
So I jump on that, and 20 miles on the back of a Can-Am 1000 with somebody you've never met in your entire life was absolutely one of the craziest things I've ever done. Last year, I had the craziest moment of my life in racing. I've got, again, in Nevada, the second craziest thing I've ever done in racing.
Yeah.
That's a wild story just in itself. Did you get that guy's whole name?
I don't know his last name. When we go later to the thing, if I can find him again, I've got $100 bill for him and his wife for dinner.
Nice. That's pretty awesome. In the chat, just so you know, 867 Diesel said, "Mike, you're the reason he went to Joe Bird's riding school." So you guys have fans in the chat that are listening.
I know exactly who that is. That is Justin Riggs. Yes, we put a to a side with that guy right there. Me, Donnie, and a bunch of friends, Justin Jefferson, we all put up some money for that guy to go to Joe Bird school. We paid for his fuel and paid for the school for him.
Well, Justin Riggs, 867 Diesel, congratulations. You got some good friends, man. So he's in the chat cheering you guys on. He just said, "Yep." So you know that you have hometown friends watching and listening.
Nice.
When you guys were there, when you and the other guy in the Can-Am were there, what were your thoughts about possibly taking the chain off? And
I didn't have that thought.
You didn't have that thought?
Nah, I didn't.
Yeah, and that was our their other issue. Like I was starting to mention, the recovery truck got there probably not too long after Mike, got his ride on the Can-Am.
Well, no, I was back in the pit, and they said he was about. Yeah, you're right, because he said he was about 15 minutes out from the bike, and like I said, I had no cell phone, no water.
Yeah, there was no cell service in that area anyway. That was it. It happened in one of the worst spots to happen.
Why didn't the recovery guy bring the bike in?
So because
I wasn't there,
the bike was locked up. The recovery guy wasn't going to try and remove or cut the chain. The chain had no master link, riveted chain. And, he wasn't going to cut the chain without having a rider or somebody from the race team give the okay on that. And I mean, that's understandable. But we couldn't he was in a cell phone dead zone, and it took our pit crew chief a really long time to ever radio weatherman to relay a message to the recovery guy, to say, "Hey, the team's fine with it. Just get the bike here." So that then led to, Luke and I getting in the other recovery vehicle and taking our long journey to get to it.
Well, guys, off the air, I have a story for that. I want to hear about one. James did just reach out to us. James, like you heard, I hope you heard in the beginning of the show, we're going to reach out to you and have another conversation with you. The guys, he says that he's doing okay and that he has no hard feelings about anything. Mechanical failures happen, but I'm sure that, like all of you, you're a little
don't get me wrong, we're all disappointed in what happened. Because I mean, like I said, and as Donnie said, it was such a great race, so intense. I mean, we were back and forth battling. Pit 1, Luke comes in first. Pit 2, all the headlight breaks. Our yellow amber light, the actually stainless steel bracket broke, and it's sitting there on the front of the bike after 19 miles, and it's it's no cheap light. It's a Baja, I think it's Baja Pits light, huh?
Baja Designs,
Baja Designs, I'm sorry.
And it's just sitting there.
Oh, it's just vibrating around, and so that's when actually the TPC team got around us. Donnie was able to get back around him for I guess somewhere in the silt. We were told said that he got past. Poor Donnie don't even remember passing him.
Yeah, it was so silty in some spots in those early sections where, as Mike is mentioning, hey, we lost our amber light on the machine. So knowing that, leaving the pit, my helmet light, I had an amber cover over it, so that if I got into a really dusty spot, and of course everybody's still bunched up early, right? Get into a dusty spot, and that way I could just shut off the primary light and just run off my amber helmet light and not be blinded. And so that was working pretty well. But even with that, I mean, you know how it is out there. And if you're full blown silt, and you almost have to come to a stop at times. And evidently Sammy was on the TPC, and he got into a bad spot and had to significantly slow down or stop. And there were some sections of that course where you had parallel paths, just 15 or 20 feet apart. And I remember coming up on one of the quads and passing that quad, but I think kind of intermixed with passing this quad and me going right or left, at some point I somehow went back by the other trike, and I didn't even know it. I heard a little later on, hey, y'all are back in front. At that point, I didn't even see them. I 100% saw and remember going by the quad, but and it absolutely was a quad, not me early morning hallucination in the desert or something thinking it was a quad instead of the trike. But yeah, so went by them, and that'll just tell you how bad it is sometimes. Who folks who've never been a part of this and been able to really experience it or see it. I mean, I went by another machine and didn't even see them. So
I've spent a lot of time riding in the desert in Nevada myself. And everybody talks about the silt sections. I must be blessed because I never had to ride through a silt section the whole time I was racing.
You definitely are, because I went through a silt section when I got on it, and it was a very high speed section. And I come up and it's just this, for us Southern guys, it looks like just fog. Well, I'd asked that question probably Friday while we were here. And I asked James, I said, do y'all have fog out here? And he's like, at times, but not really. I was like, okay, which made no sense to me. But I come up on a section, and it's this dust just sitting there. So I kind of slowed down to maybe third or fourth gear. And then all of a sudden I can't see. And then it was like I was on a cartoon. Poof. It literally just went through a silt section and went over my head, almost completely stalled the bike down. I literally grabbed the clutch, couldn't see, and then it rolled through it, and then it finally it opened up, and I was like, wow, okay. Then take back off. Yeah, it was a little scary moment for me.
Wow. I want to backtrack just a little bit here. And Red Rider tells me, Luke, which is Luke, that it's Timothy Levet.
Yes, that is correct. Out of Hurricane, Utah.
Yeah.
They just give me a flashcard.
Nice.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
They say in the chat, and James was talking about one of your other riders, which Aiden, which we'll get into that. When you guys were in tech and before the race started, what was the atmosphere like? I mean, not just with your team, but everybody there.
Oh, it was amazing. From my experience, it was so cool. Everybody's in line. You got the trucks, you got the bikes, everybody's out there talking, and the few people that we had met from last year and over there talking because the TPC team hadn't been there. We got to meet Skeeter for the first time, and he was actually working on his bike in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So we went over there after we found all that out and said, "Hey man, can we help? Anything we need to do, anything we need or we have, you just let us know. We're here." But the atmosphere there was just, everybody was uplifted and just happy to be there. There wasn't nobody that I come across was not super excited for the race, happy to be there. Obviously they're like, "Hey, what you riding?" And when we say a trike, and they're like, "Oh, y'all are crazy."
Yeah.
What's wrong with y'all? I actually had one guy asked me and Donnie both. He said, "Did your mom drop y'all when y'all were young?"
Well, I was going to ask that question later, but
Yeah.
I believe that. I think so.
I do have a story about that too, but no, it's as far as
This is why we call him Uncle Donnie.
Okay.
Other than the fact that I'm probably the oldest of our crew, so but I mean, as you know, tech and contingency. I mean, for folks who've never come out here, that's one thing that I was really looking forward to, and it doesn't disappoint, because just seeing all the anything from, hey, you might see a trike, you're seeing the Baja bugs, you're seeing the buggies, the spec trucks, the unlimited trucks, all the other bikes. I mean, it's amazing all the stuff there is to see. You could literally just sit there all day and watch everything roll through. And of course, some people do. I mean, we want to, if we can, get in and out of tech, see and do the few things we need to, and then maybe, try and continue to get some rest. Or in our case, on race day, or I guess on tech and contingency day, the last couple of races, what we've done is, with the race starting near Pahrump, High Flight Seats is one of our sponsors, and they're based right here in Pahrump. And so they'll open up their shop to us, and, we can go there, have a shaded place to work on the machine, rip right across the street and actually, run it for a little bit on some, dusty trails or roads, and check some things out. And, that helped us out last year. Get a few last minute deals, and then helped us out this year. We found, last minute, hey, maybe we had a little brake problem, and worked through that. Thankfully it didn't take us too long, but, and just gives you another opportunity to sit there as a team and talk about the race plan, the pit strategy. But also, thankfully, this year we had, the little Airbnb we found north of Pahrump that we're staying in right now, actually had a pretty good open room area where we had probably 10 of us in here.
Yeah, all doing our team meetings and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's another thing. I mean, again, for folks who haven't done it or experienced it, I mean, it's a definite bucket list item. I mean, and the whole experience, from all the prep, the planning, the logistics, the team coming together and figuring everything out. Not just the atmosphere on tech day at contingency, but then also, just all that interplay with the team and getting to pull together and work together and pull it off, because, I mean, you can probably tell from both of us talking, I mean, hey, are we disappointed we didn't finish? Yeah, sure. But it's still a phenomenal experience. And here's the thing, and what's so great about the trike community, and the ATV community, but the trike group's kind of smaller and maybe even tighter.
Oh yeah, that's 100%. They are way tighter than, because I've been in quad racing for a long time, and we've got our close niche. But these three-wheeler guys, trike guys, it's a special group. It really is. I mean, like, I was able to wait. About what's going on in my life right now with my brother-in-law. I was able to take and FaceTime. Everybody's there. He's still in ICU. I was able to FaceTime, and I literally went down the line showing all the bikes, trucks, buggies, even the bugs, and just, the whole hospital. My whole family was sitting out there going through it, and they're just in awe of, because we don't, in South Louisiana, we don't know what this is about. If I wouldn't have been here last year, I can just go by listening to what you say, Mr. Leonard, but so, and all of them, when you could just hear everybody in the room saying, wow, how cool is that? And then I pick it up and you look at the terrain, and I show them all the mountains in the background, and it's just, It's an amazing place, man. Really is.
Yeah.
You know, let's can we just touch on your family
Absolutely.
for a moment? I hope that the posting that we did helped.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thoughts and prayers need to go out for this young man who's fighting for his life. I hope that everything works out in his favor and in your family's favor. We need to respect everybody. That's the whole thing.
Yes.
Respect law enforcement, first responders, you know, military, everybody. Just show a little bit of respect.
I will tell you now, the law enforcement as a whole, and it's sad that it's taken something like this for me to understand it. But these guys, I mean, they put their life every day on the line to protect us, for us to go out here and do what we're doing. I mean, that poor fellow there was on his way home to see his wife and his beautiful little daughter. And, you know, being it was done intentionally, really, really hurts. You know, it was not doing a thing wrong, was actually on his way home, just got through doing a detail, whether it was a pulling, you know, escort for an oversized load or whatever it was. I don't really remember or don't know, because the past 2 weeks it's kind of ran through as a basically one day. So it just, but what the community, what law enforcement has done for the family, how close knit those guys are, what they do for one another, how much they mean to one another. I mean, I really didn't know how much those guys are in it for each other. You know, we say us as basically as the trikes, you know, how tight they are. But, you know, at the end of the day, we don't hold a candle to those guys.
Right. Well, the state troopers in Nevada probably do one hell of a job taking care of you guys during the race as well.
Oh, well, yes, 100%. Like I
Walking
said, I
road
have.
crossings and doing the things that they're doing out there. Because I know when I raced BITD, they were everywhere. And, you know, being a chase guy or a racer, you just watch your speed, don't do anything stupid. And they just let us race and make sure that there's no incidents. So everybody take a moment and, say your prayers or moment of silence or whatever you need to do as an individual to thank this family and make sure that there's a speedy recovery. Um, it's back to business, I guess. Uh, the one thing that I wanted to ask about was you mentioned that you came across is it Skeeter?
Yes.
Yes.
Which I don't know Skeeter's name. I think he's been reached out to me, but I have to apologize to everybody. I get reached out to a lot, and I
Yeah.
want to reach back to everybody, but unfortunately, I'm one guy with 3 jobs, and
Yeah, we understand.
I'm sorry if I don't get back to you in enough time. But you mentioned that you guys went over and offered to help. Okay, I've worked with a lot of ATV teams, and we will help during a race. But I don't think we will ever sit down and help before the race. And
So,
you know,
so I'll give you 2 examples though, right? I mean, just from this weekend. And again, it's kind of, I was actually just having a conversation with our host here at where we're staying and kind of explaining to her, the trike group. And, so Julian was on our team, back in August as a rider. Well, he was helping chase for Skeeter, and I think Jackson Smith maybe is his actual name.
Yeah, I think
Skeeter Rippendirt, but so and got to meet him in person, this time, but literally get to meet him in the parking lot. Julian is working with him on his bike. We know Julian, and so we're going over, and because of that connection, hey, if y'all need anything that we can actually help with, please let us know. And the funny thing about that was later in the evening, once we had left High Flight and we're coming back to have another team discussion, we're halfway here, and I get a call from Julian. And so my assumption was that, hey, they do need something. Let's see what he needs. And it actually wasn't for Skeeter's machine; it was for Team TPC looking for a welder. And hey, does the shop you just came from have a welder? And they didn't, but then they had a connection who helped, find one in the pits. So, it's great that that's part of it. And, folks are able to pull together and help each other get to the line. Maybe it's because there's so few of us at this point, but
I think it's just a respect for each other, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. I mean, for one, the more bikes out there, the more competition we have. I mean, that's that's what we missed last year. We had the desert last year as our competition. So I'd tell you right now, if I'd have had to go out there and help them work on it physically myself and stay up half the night for them so they could get on the line, I would do it, no questions asked.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's what I love about you guys. There's just there's no flag.
Right.
One
Right.
group. And I got to ask you this. Mike, you said you were from Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
You got a Texas shirt on. What's up with that?
Well, that was, let's see, the 2024 Texas Underground ATV National.
Okay. That explains
That
it.
was the second national that I've ever won racing. I won the 40 plus A class.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
OMF, you guys are involved with OMF. They make some great wheels. Back in the day, Tim Orchard and team made skid plates for everybody in the industry. They don't make skid plates anymore. The last time I was running a team, they built skid plates for me.
Oh,
And
nice.
trust me, it was a nightmare, but they did it. Yeah, Tim is awesome, and he made me order X number, but he did it, and it was a special design.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And
I could still sell those skid plates today
I'll bet.
if he'd make them, but he won't because they're so intense. There's so much material involved. I mean, I think the skid plate alone weighed like 6 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, Tim and then Woody Helton is my main contact. And I've gotten to know him personally at a few rides, and he's also a Louisiana guy, but, California transplant now. And he's really helped us out, as on the wheel front. And, we have those discussions and, what we need and what they can do for us. And, I will say that was another thing. Hey, both of the conversion trikes running in this race were on OMF wheels. So talking to Bill Casey and David Ham, prepping their bike the evening before the race, I happened to notice that. And so they're running OMF also. So that pretty cool deal there.
Yeah. And they like I said, they make a great wheel. They use DWT parts and then manufacture their own stuff for them. Big shout out to OMF and DWT for doing the things they do for the industry. What's the story with Aiden, 19-year-old kid that's never raced before?
Oh, we've got to say that he absolutely has no fear. He was clocked doing 88.3 miles an hour. He literally blew by the TPC guys. I mean, was it Dave on the bike?
Yeah, David Wiley was saying, he was telling us, he said, man, I'm tapped wide open. I'm, kind of tucked in on one of the wide open sections of the course, and Aiden just pulled on by him.
Motors by him. He's got his head under the handlebars, stretched way out from that. Now this is coming from Aiden. That's what he said. But the actual race tracker clocked him doing 88.3 or 5 or whatever it was.
Yeah, and no telling what it really was, because I went back and tracked myself on Life 360 on one of my sections, and I guess the second section I got to run yesterday. And I think racetracks, because I mean, again, for those that don't know, hey, that's only like every 5 or 8 minute snapshot. So you could be doing 35, you could be doing 85, and just whatever it catches you at that time is what gets posted, and then you have to screenshot the bubble, because you can't really
you can't go back. We
go
found
back
that
and
out
get
yesterday.
it. Yeah, we were trying to make that happen late yesterday, just for information for the future. But yeah, one of my sections, I was just happy. I had just edged over 80 point something that we were
Down
able
the
to catch.
Airstrip or something.
Yeah. And then of course, I'm sitting here seeing that, hey, Aiden got 88. I'm like, man, I had to be faster than that. So I went back and retraced on Life 360, And I mean, he does only weigh about 37 pounds and I'm about 180. So that, you know, that might've had a little factor, but yeah, according to Life 360, I hit 86. So there's no telling
how fast he
really went.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if we had real time minute by minute, who knows, he might've been touching 90 on a trike in a race.
That engine can definitely do it, especially a three-wheeler that's lighter. Hey, we got a question in the chat from Joe Tall, who's normally on the show with me, ATV On Demand. He's also got a new show out there that you guys should check out
absolutely.
on YouTube, Quad Talk. So you guys could check that out. Joe's asking what kind of machine, because we never specified what Luke's bike was. Can you give us the rundown on what that is?
So yeah, TRX 450R based trike conversion. So Luke, you know, some people know Luke Peterson is his name. Yep. Red Rider is kind of what he's known as or what he goes by, and he's got a Facebook spot with that.
I also got to figure out how we get everybody that rides a trike has a nickname. They don't go by their own name. I got to figure that out. I still don't understand that one just yet.
Yeah.
Well, what's your nickname, Mike?
I don't have one yet. That's what I'm saying. We ain't got. I don't know. I'm still going by Mike.
No, but so it's essentially, you know, it's I guess you'd say it's similar to a TPC style where it's a TRX 450R rear end of the machine. The frame's been cut. You're welding on a front, you know, engine cradle and head and putting inverts on the front. And so it's a bike that, you know, Luke built that chassis himself, and he. You know, he's known as Red Rider, and it's Red's Hyper Trike is, you know, I guess it's a brand of it.
Is it a CRF motor or a TRX?
Oh, it's a four-wheeler motor. It's a
TRX.
Yeah.
TRX. Yeah. And that's where the transmission issue came in that ultimately bit us. Is I'm not as much of a quad guy, or certainly not a Honda quad guy. I have two Yamahas that I race back home in cross country. You know, Mike's saying all day long, because he's had TRXs and raced them for years, and he's like, hey, yeah, that's a known weakness on those machines, and in this case it bit us. So.
Yeah, I mean, I rode Hondas. I mean, my preferred is the KFX 450. Everybody rags me for it because, you know, why you want that thing? Well, for me,
everybody's got a weakness. It's okay. It's okay.
I understand. I know, but that is the closest bike that I have ever got on that is similar to what I started on a 250R. That is the only bike that feels and handles, to me, close to a 250, to a, you know.
He's meaning a TRX 250.
250R.
Yeah. When we get into our show,
yes,
we'll get into it, because we love the chassis and hate the motor and the electronics.
Well, one of mine has now been converted to a carburetor.
Okay, that's great.
But that is the weakness, and we'll have to get into that later. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you guys gotten to ride the conversions? Joe with another great question. Have you guys got to ride the conversions between the bike conversion or the quad conversion or the aftermarket frame build?
So not an aftermarket frame build. And again, you know, if you back up to
some of the TPC stuff is not a conversion. It is a frame built.
Yeah, I've never rode it. I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't, you know, like that. Or I understand HRE also builds some, you know, kind of one-off. I know they do some chromoly ATC 250R chassis. I believe they've done some kind of other motor in a similar chassis before. I've not gotten to ride one of those. I mean, my personal conversion is a converted Yamaha, an early WR 450.
Yeah, yours is a dirt bike frame.
Yeah, so mine's a dirt bike conversion. Richard Mastis originally built that machine for Ed Hicks, you know, who's out west here. And as I understand it, I'm probably about the sixth owner of that machine. But so that's my primary experience. I've ridden one or two others, but on a dirt bike conversion, and then here riding Luke's, you know, quad conversion. You know, and they are different. I found that, you know, my bike, and especially set up in desert trim last year.
Your bike's a little longer.
Yeah, mine's longer wheelbase.
A little different. the boat that's actually two different handlings of each bike. I feel like the only weakness to Donnie's is it doesn't have the speed.
Yeah, just not the power. I mean, it's a '05 WR 450 motor.
I can fix that.
Okay.
Hey, we'll have
definitely.
to talk. So it's funny, and I realized, racing it back home, I raced it in a couple of Texas cross country events, and then I'll go to Florida and race with those guys, Waldo, Dade City, whatever, and race it in motocross there. So racing against an ATC 250R, maybe a 310 kitted bike, or racing against a really briefed on, big bore 350X, even let's call it a slow 450 is really competitive. On a motocross track, maybe not the best handling because, the rake not being quite where you'd like it to be. It's not as bad as some I've seen, but, my particular conversion, it's okay being on the Yamaha chassis. But then when we brought it out west last year, considering, hey, we're talking these speeds, and we're in the 80s, TPC got clocked in the 80s, with the Honda power plant. My bike on that early WR, we were just mid to upper 70s was the highest we saw.
I want to say last year it clocked Donnie. That clock doing 76, if I remember.
Yeah, it was like 76.3, something like that. And I mean, that's tucked flat out. Why? Again, we don't really know. Hey, it could have been a little more, but I mean, just relative. That's the highest we saw there. We saw 88 this year. You're
consistently in the 80s from these two machines.
Well, just from the experience I have, if we're going to talk speed, knowing the ATVs. So you take the weight, the extra tire, the amount of performance that you have to build into an ATV to get it to 88, where with the three-wheelers, you take the wheel off, you're taking the weight off, you don't have to build near the performance into it to get it to go the speeds for the ATVs. So a couple years back, at the end of Vegas to Reno on a pea gravel road, we were clocked at 88 miles an hour unofficially.
Awesome.
Going uphill 500 miles into the race. But the motor design was ready to go to a motocross track.
Really? Mm. Okay.
Because you had to have that much performance to pull the inserts in the tires, to pull the extra weight, to do all that, to get it to go that fast.
And that was on a quad?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you weren't going to race that. You weren't going to race that quad another 500 miles with that engine in it. It just wasn't.
That was my next question, because I mean, I know coming from the motocross world that you're killing the reliability out of the motor.
Yep, and that's one of the things that most of the three-wheeler guys are not having to overbuild performance to get top speed out of them. Like your Yamaha, Don, we could do minor mods to it and probably pick up 5 to 8 miles an hour.
We're going to have to send it to you.
Yeah.
We need that to happen.
So before, we went over to Florida and did a little, 2-day weekend event they had back in February. And again, motocross, but I did swap a cam on that bike before then. And I mean, that was a noticeable little pep just with swapping one of the cams. So I know.
Probably didn't change the horsepower. It probably changed the power delivery.
Yeah.
Is why you liked it, because the power delivery was in the wrong place.
Yeah, okay. It was definitely a little more abrupt than what it had been before. I mean, again, slow, early WR motor.
Now, he didn't tell you what he gave me to ride in this February race. I had a 350 jug on a 250R three-wheeler.
Okay, and did you beat it?
So that was I picked it on everybody. That was like Lane Frost riding Red Rock is how I felt on that motocross track with that 350 jug on that 250R. It was absolutely rad.
That's pretty awesome. I need to, you guys need to frickin' talk to Red Ryder. I'd love to get him on the show and talk to him because he's done a bunch of desert stuff. And, either him and I just can't seem to connect or he's super busy, but I want to get him on. I'm going to chase down Jackson and Timothy and see if I can get them guys on as well, because they have some pretty good stories
Yeah.
of what's going
Oh,
on.
absolutely. Look, everybody that was still here yesterday, even truck guys, even dirt bike guys, found out that Skeeter was gonna finish. Now, it was in it. I'm sure there'll be some argument about whatever it is, but everybody that knew that man was fixing to cross the line, we all went down there to the finish line. It was probably what, 20 or 30 of us cheering him on. Poor fella could hardly stand. Couldn't straighten his fingers out. They were just so crimped from holding on to that bike for 30 hours.
Did he ride
How
a Did he ride
sir?
a thumb throttle or a twist throttle?
He had a twist. They literally taped his hand to the throttle.
Nice.
Yeah, it's so interesting though, and I know this would interest you, Leonard. Is you know, you looked after the race, and we only made 340-ish miles, and we see, you know, and hey, we're a team. Everybody's getting on the bike fresh. You're riding hard. You're pushing more power. The shape our tires were in, and then we watch Skeeter cross the line and look at the tires on his 350. And he was out there not to set land speed records, but to survive. He was out on an ATC 350, which, you know, probably half the horsepower we're running.
It has the original crank in it.
His tires were just, you know, like, in my mind, it looked like very little wear.
Yeah,
whereas ours, we'd have likely been changing tires before the end of the race.
Oh yeah, they were already
full mileage.
When they got to the bike, the tires were flat. So we had caught a puncture somewhere. I guess either when Aiden had it or maybe I had it, who knows? But when Donnie and Luke got to the bike, I think the left rear tire was flat and it was half wore out, and it's a Maxxis Razor tire, you know, a very well-known tire.
You guys were aggressive riding. Okay, they're not, and the best tires are not built to live a long time.
No.
Traction and do what they're supposed to be doing. You guys took me off of my game here. I had some other questions about the 1,000 and some of the buildups that come up during the event. But overall, when you guys got to the finish line with Skeeter, it wasn't just three-wheeler guys. It was truck guys. It was everybody, right?
Everybody. Even a couple people that was on side-by-sides. I'm telling you, we had 20, 30, 40 people there just cheering this kid on. I mean, I think he said he was 26 years old, never raced in a desert. I don't think he's ever raced a race, period.
Yeah, and you'll hear more about his story when you talk to him, but he went and ran chase for a friend in the 1,000 last year, and his friend didn't finish, but then he heard about, you know, Legacy putting on this event, and he said, hey, that looks, you know, I want to go do that. That looks like fun, and set that goal and, you know, made it happen. So
I wonder if Wrangle's going to set up a deal to come and do a 1,000-mile race now, because he did Vegas to Reno.
And we've already had that conversation.
So that's funny. And so Wrangle initially, you know, his plan, from what I understood from him directly, was, hey, I'm an Ironman it, you know, and he told us, hey, plan A, B, and C is this, this, and this. Well, if some folks notice his name popped up on the TPC team, you know, a couple weeks back, well, then he had some other stuff going on and kind of last minute had to pull out. So his intent initially was to Ironman it. Plans changed. He was still going to ride it, but with David Ham and that crew, and then didn't get to ride it at all. But he did help with Skeeter's effort. So Wrangle built the lighting setup. As I understood it, that's actually Wrangle's lighting setup that he put on that machine, and set it up or adapted it. Well, I guess he didn't have to, because it was one that he had on one of his 350Xs.
So right on, right?
Yeah. So he had a part in that, and you know, and of course, you know, sharing and again, the trike community being tight and most folks knowing each other. You know, I'm looking at it at the finish and taking some photos, you know, taking some mental notes. You know, if we're circling, I'll circle back though, because I know, hey, we kind of went some different directions when we were talking about the trike community and the racers being tight. David Ham and Bill Casey and I were talking after the finish, while we were waiting for Skeeter to show up. And, it's just funny because I'm talking to them about our race, sharing some info. They're doing the same with me. And it's, every time you come out here, it's a learning experience.
Oh, yeah.
But
definitely.
It's great that we're close enough where we can share some of our own hiccups with each other and learn from the other teams. Because again, hey, we want to beat them, but we don't want to beat them because they had a breakdown or a mechanical. We want to beat them because both teams finished, everybody was safe, and we had an awesome race out there competing with each other. And so whatever we can learn, not only from our own effort, but from theirs and vice versa, it just, makes it better for all of us out here because, again, as you know, the time, the money, the overall effort you put into this type of race, all the prep, all the logistics, you don't want to come out here and just run a couple 100 miles. You want to come out here and make it to the finish, and that's why when, hey, our race went sideways, our immediate mindset was, well, first, when we didn't know what Mike's status was okay, is our rider okay? But then as we're getting more info, it's okay. I mean, literally coming out of, Luke's mouth, he's got the majority of our tools and equipment in his van. And it's like, okay, we can get a pretty good pit set up right here. And we're starting to lay out pit mats and get tools out and get ready to do a motor swap. Like had pulled our spare motor out and doing an oil change on it, starting to go through it, getting pieces and parts ready. These wrenches here, these wrenches here. We didn't have a whole bunch of parts containers. I'm literally taking some of our larger, like Gatorade bottles we had already gone through and cutting open bottles just to have parts containers so we could keep nuts and bolts straight, and I mean,
I was wondering what that
was. You're doing, what you can to, hey, let's get back on track, even if we're a couple hours down, because you want to save the effort if at all possible. And others, like we mentioned, hey, Julian's right there and we're getting communication from Wrangle and they're trying to help us out as far as helping us get to our bike and calling other people they know in the racing organizations and trying to help foster that communication.
Julian did an amazing job trying to help get our bike back to a pit to where we could work on it.
Well, off air, you guys should reach out to me and we'll have a conversation about some intel that I have that will help you in the future.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I wanted to change the subject on you guys here. I apologize. The start, 3 a.m.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that puts you guys and I'm going to lay the scenario out and then you guys come back and fill it in for me. So 3 a.m. that puts you guys roughly riding in the dark for what, 2.5 hours? And then the trucks start at 8 a.m. on a little bit alternate course, but shouldn't the trucks have started at 10? And because you guys were having the dark deficiency that would slow you down, even though they had a course set up. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
So, so I guess two things. One, even though, it's not fun to go start at 3 a.m. right. And actually for us, if you think about it and back it up with the number of handlebar entries, 3-wheelers at the back, I think Luke actually left the line about 331, 332, somewhere in there. And so we knew that ahead of time, hey, 3 a.m. start, but he's not leaving till about 3:30. It was good to get that much of a head start on the trucks. It might have been nice to get more, but
there was rumor at midnight, right?
Yeah. At first, that's what we were hearing, midnight start, which would have put us even more in the dark to begin with. And again, race planning, here we are before, weeks and months before saying, okay, well, here's the mileage. And we think we can average low to mid 40s, but when you take dark into account and that much darkness, of course, your speed's probably going to drop a little bit. So we were banking on 40-mile-an-hour average just as a safe bet so that we could know relative pit times. And we know, okay, Luke's starting. He's got to be set up well with lighting and helmet light. I'm taking the next leg. I need to have my helmet light set up ready to go. And then by the time I'm handing off to Mike, well, he's
the,
probably going to be daylight, you know, and so you're factoring all that in. But one thing that Legacy did, and I will, you know, their organization overall on this was really, really top notch, really well run event.
Great job, yeah.
The fact that they put that bypass in, and I don't know if that's what you're mentioning with the alternate route, but it on the one hand, it's disappointing that you go from signing up for a true 1,000+ miles. It was like 1,035 initially. Well, this, you know, that bypass dropped it to 908 for handlebars. But
I think
that was a good concept, you know, to give us a little more lead on trophy trucks, because if you look at it, when TPC crossed the line, they were right ahead of the first four-wheel vehicle.
I think 30 seconds, if I remember right. They was finished 30 seconds ahead of the first truck to finish.
Yeah,
they did make it to the finish line before the truck.
Sure did. Yeah, sure
within,
did.
Yeah, within a minute.
Yeah, I want to say it was. I want to say the guy said 30 seconds. I think.
Yeah, and so
that's what I was trying to get at. Where the truck was going to catch you.
So actually, they did. It was spot on. If you think about it, I mean, how great 20 seconds, 30 seconds a piece.
Yeah.
Now, granted, would you like an extra hour for mishap or whatnot? But so actually, in all reality, I guess it worked out to Legacy, worked out perfectly.
Well, but think about this too from that perspective. So we're racing with TPC neck and neck until, you know, race mile 484, 485,
whatever
where
it was,
the bike's at. We're pushing each other. We're running a good pace. You know, and you would just think this, but also speaking to them firsthand afterward, once they knew we were out or going to have to swap a motor at minimum to stay in the game, I think they backed it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So had that not occurred and we were the two teams were pushing each other to the finish, I would be willing to bet that instead of a minute ahead of the first four-wheel vehicle, we would have been 30 minutes or 40 minutes or more ahead of that first.
Well, they still averaged 42 miles.
Yeah, they still had a great average considering the amount of darkness. But the teams would have been pushing each other to a higher average, you know, finish in a lower elapsed time. And we say all this.
Yeah,
there was one trophy truck that was substantially in the lead amongst the four-wheelers.
Oh, yeah.
And they broke and they were out. Because I know that was one thing Luke and I were talking about is we're going in with the recovery vehicle to go into the course. We see helicopter coming by dust trail. And usually, you know, out here, you'd see the first truck and another one or two not too far off of them.
I did notice that one.
But that guy at that point in the course, I mean,
he was 20 minutes, 30 minutes ahead. Yeah.
He was ahead. So they may have over.
Yeah.
Who was it?
Who was it? I don't recall.
I don't remember.
I haven't slept enough in a few days, and my bandwidth. I heard the name, but you know, I just heard that they broke, and I don't recall the name.
Yeah, because I think the Fox truck. That's all I remember, the Fox truck. But I do remember when I was in that pit, it was a maroonish colored truck. I don't know the guy's name. I'm not, you know, not being from over here.
Yeah, there was
all those guys are.
Yeah. So, but you know, so. Either way, hey, you might have had a truck finishing 20, 30 minutes ahead of what the actual four-wheel winner was. But at the same time, had we stayed in it, I think both teams would have finished that much further ahead of the game. So it'd have been closer. I mean, if you get passed by a couple of four-wheel vehicles, I mean, that's okay as long as you're not getting passed by 30 of them.
Like last year.
Yeah.
So in the chat again, Joe has another question. Do you think that they should change the starting order? That the trucks go early,
so
and the bikes, ATVs?
We've had that discussion, and those 1,000 horsepower beasts destroy the course.
Yes,
it's two factors. It's one, they rip significant ruts. That was another thing to Legacy's credit, where hey, we're going up. We're making a loop, we're coming back, and then the course is coming back on itself at a certain point. And that's why they had to have, you know, be kind of stringent on some of the pit closing times because you were going to eventually wind back on parts of the same course. If the trucks had run through the silt, and especially if they had run through the silt and back, and not, I'm saying trucks, but four-wheel vehicles in general, some of those silt beds would have been really hard to manage, especially for a trike, because you're essentially picking a rut, you're dropping your front wheel in it, and then, because you can't fully straddle it, and then you don't know. I mean, you might be going through that fluffy silt and there's a significant rock or boulder in the middle of that rut. You're trying to make progress. You hit it, even if you're just doing 15 or 20. Best case, you bog down and get stuck in the silt. Worst case, you're going over the bars.
Right.
And then, somebody can't see you sitting there in the silt.
To be honest with you, that would be a great question for Skeeter.
Yeah, because he came through after a lot of the vehicles. But the other thing is, besides, the ruts in some of the sections like that, is those guys, I mean, especially, and this is more directly at trophy trucks or spec trucks, those things are like tanks out there, right? Oh, yeah. I mean, some of what I've seen them do now after a few races, see in person what they can do, what they can take, what they can plow through. There are so many more large rocks and boulders that get strewn directly onto the course.
Yeah.
After those trucks roll through and pass through, that would be a significant hazard to our machines. Because as it is, there's times where you're negotiating really rocky areas, or, just oddball, boulders and mini boulders anywhere from, like a softball to beach ball size on the course. And yeah, you tend to see more of those basketball, beach ball size rocks get knocked around on the course by those trophy trucks.
Householder was the truck.
Yes, that's correct. That one. Yeah, that's correct. I remember that name. Now you say that. That's what they.
That's one of the professional teams that races all over. So yeah,
Okay.
they're I can't believe they broke, but that they did. Guys, I want to thank you so much. There's so much more to talk about.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you taking your morning with me and talking about it.
Thanks for having me.
There's so much more to the story. I need to talk to James. I need to talk to Luke. You've given me Timothy and Skeeter's information. I'll be looking those guys up. I want to congratulate you on even just taking the effort to go out there and ride a three-wheeler in that environment. We will be setting you guys up with counselors. Trust me, I come from the three-wheeler world. I totally get it. If we didn't have quads, I'd be riding a three-wheeler as well. I've gotten a little older and a little smarter. I try not to, but occasionally we do build some three-wheelers and I have to go ride them. But James, thank you for your input. Everybody in the show, Joe, thank you for your input as well. We appreciate that. And everybody, you need to get over there and subscribe to ATV On Demand and check out their new show with Quad Talk, as well as some of Joe's videos. Dirt Wheels Magazine is always available. ATV Talk runs 3 shows a week. I do an audio podcast that drops on Tuesday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. You can also catch that show on the weekends on YouTube if you can't get to the audio portion. Our Wednesday show is called Bench Prep Conversation. It's live on Instagram. Some of these guys have already been on those shows, and they can tell you that the conversation is 100% different and goes a totally different direction. This is the morning show. It's Sundays at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on YouTube. And all we're trying to do is promote the ATV world. That means three-wheelers, four-wheelers, UTVs. We also promote motorsports as far as motorcycle racing and trucks. You'll see some things coming in the future from ATV Talk. We'll be branching out into a couple different industries because we want the motorsports industry kind of to shine a light on the ATV world. So we go to some of these more popular industries and bring them in so that everybody gets to talk to and see you guys, where when they start watching the shows, they understand that the three-wheelers, the four-wheeler guys do some pretty spectacular stuff. So stay tuned for all that. Don, I'm sure you and I'll reach out. Mike, hey,
yes, sir.
Please reach out to me.
I will.
And let's have a conversation about your background, and we can talk a little bit about that Kawasaki.
Okay.
There. the rest of your team, make sure that they know they're more. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I'd like to talk to every one of them, and
Okay.
if we can do a group chat or we can do Instagram live bench prep show, whatever they want to do or whatever we can set up. Luke said he's going to reach out to me. James is always available to me, so
Right.
we'll take
Thank
care of
you.
that.
Love James. Love James. James does an
Oh, dude,
amazing
he's
job
awesome.
for us.
He's awesome. Joe says good show. Joe's normally on here with me, but I figured that the way this was going to lay out, it was, we would do it this way. But
Absolutely. Great
guys,
experience.
reach out to ATV Talk
Oh, we
anytime
will.
you have
Definitely.
something. When you have something you need to post, Mike,
Yes, sir.
no, Don, let us know. Tell the team that. We will be more than glad to help you guys in any way. It doesn't have to be ATV related, three-wheeler related. We're a family. We want to help out. Everybody in the chat, we want to thank you so much for being part of the show. And if you have more questions for these guys, we know how to get a hold of them. We can always bring it up in another event or another show. And 4th of July is next weekend, guys. Make sure you celebrate and enjoy this great nation that we live in.
Well, yes, 100%. I can definitely be that. I definitely know what that means.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thanks, Lenny.
Anything else in closing you guys want to say?
I just thank you for having me on here. It's the first time that I've been on here, and I'll definitely look forward to talking to you in the future. It's really, really neat for me. 25 years of racing, and I finally get to do a podcast with one of my best friends. So super, super special for me.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And just, for me, Lenny, thanks for covering what we love to do. And, once again, just thanks for the team and the sponsors, each and every one of these guys and gals.
The only other person I got to thank,
here,
I have to thank my wife for allowing me to go with the situations, because I was not going to go. I was literally going to stay home with the wife and the family. And she looked at me and she said, I really think this would mean a lot to Caleb and the family for what you've done. So I hope that it means something to them. I'm fortunate to be able to have the skills to come out here and ride, but ultimately family comes first.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thoughts and prayers to your family, and
thanks again.
Make sure you keep us posted on that situation as well.
Yes, sir. I will.
We cut you off a little, Don. Go ahead.
Oh no, just wanting to thank the team. That's the whole, it takes a village, it's 5 riders, but more than just 5 riders contributing to the effort. So the riders, the families, like Mike's mentioned, and hey, all of our families have to, allow us or support us to come out and do this, because it is an effort. Thanks to the folks on the team here that hadn't been with this group before, or this core group. And I guess I'm really saying, like James and I pulling this effort together. Some of these team members had never partnered up with us before. So just thanks for what they did and for having faith in us that we could pull it together and pull it off. And also the sponsors, again, like we mentioned, OMF, High Flight, Tire Spines helped us out. So those are the primary ones that really helped us out with the effort.
Well, thanks to all of them, and super shout out to James DeCoker for loving the three-wheeler world so much. He devotes
that
so
he
much
does.
time to it. And never-ending stories. Gosh, he just never-ending stories with that guy. I love it.
Yes,
I love talking to him. I learned something about the industry that I grew up in every time I talk to him. So,
yeah.
All right, guys, I'll let you get back to your weekend. Tell everybody on the team, thank you so much for your time. And again, I know you didn't finish, but you participated, and thanks for the effort.
Yep, it was fun.
It was great.
Thanks,
Thank
Lenny.
y'all. Appreciate it.
Yeah.